So in Bangkok, there is a temple where people line up every single day to pray to a ghost. A woman who died 200 years ago in childbirth, waiting for her husband to come home from war. And they say, she's still waiting. They say she still kills anyone who tries to tell her she's dead. In Indonesia, there is a city named after a ghost, a real city, on a real map, founded by a sultan who had to fire cannons every single year just to keep her from coming back. And they still fire those cannons today. And in the Philippines, there is a road where taxi drivers, for 70 years, have picked up a beautiful woman in a white dress. They look in the rearview mirror, and her face is covered in blood. Welcome to Sea Daily Buzz. Today, we are telling you the 3 most famous ghost stories in Southeast Asia. Real legends, real places, real shrines, real fear. These are not campfire stories. These are the ghosts that entire countries still believe in. Turn your lights on. You're going to need them. Let's start in Bangkok. Around 200 years ago, there is a neighborhood called Phra Khanong. Back then, it was rice paddies and jungle. A canal runs through it, simple wooden houses. And in one of those houses lived a young woman named Nak. People called her Mae Nak, Mother Nak. Mae Nak was in love. Her husband's name was Mak. They had just built a life together, a small home by the canal. And Mae Nak was pregnant with their first child. Then, war came. Thailand was fighting a conflict, and Mak was drafted. He had to leave his pregnant wife and go fight. He promised her he would come back. While he was gone, the worst thing happened. Mae Nak went into labor. Something went terribly wrong. Mae Nak and her baby both died, right there, in their little wooden house, alone. The villagers buried her in a shallow grave behind the house. And then, Mak came home from war. He walked down the path to his house. The front door opened. And there, standing in the doorway, was his beautiful wife, holding their newborn baby, smiling at him. He didn't know she was dead. For weeks, they lived together. Mae Nak cooked for him. She fed the baby. She slept next to him every night. And every time a neighbor tried to tell Mac the truth, "Your wife is dead. You are living with a ghost," that neighbor would die. Strange accidents, sudden illness. Mae Nak didn't want anyone taking her husband away from her. Not even death. The story breaks when one day, Mae Nak is cooking. She drops a lime through the floorboards, and Mac watches his wife's arm stretch, impossibly long, reaching down through the floor, picking up the lime, and pulling it back up. He finally understood, and he ran. He ran to Wat Mahabut, a Buddhist temple nearby. Mae Nak chased him. Her love for him was so strong, so violent, that when she realized he had escaped, she tore the village apart. People were terrified to go outside at night. They were terrified to say her name. Eventually, a monk was called. He performed an exorcism. He trapped Mae Nak's spirit in a clay jar. He sealed it, and he threw the jar into the canal. And for a while, Phra Khanong was quiet again. Until some fishermen, years later, caught the jar in their net. They opened it, and Mae Nak was free again. The terror started all over. It took a much more powerful monk this time, a legendary one named Somdet to finally contain her. He bound her spirit to a piece of bone from her forehead, and he kept that piece of bone with him, forever. That bone, nobody knows where it is today. It's been passed down from monk to monk, for generations. Now here's the part that will mess with your head. Mae Nak's shrine is real. It exists right now, today, in Bangkok. It's inside Wat Mahabut Temple, the same temple where her husband Mak hid from her. Hundreds of people visit her shrine every single day. Pregnant women pray to her for safe delivery. Young men pray to her to avoid the military draft. Couples pray to her to bless their marriage. People leave her offerings, dresses, children's toys, flowers, lottery tickets. Mae Nak is one of the most prayed-to spirits in all of Thailand. She has been the subject of over 20 feature films. 20, probably more. She is mentioned in soap operas, commercials, novels, school textbooks. Every single Thai person knows her name. Every single Thai person knows the story. Because here, Mae Nak is not fiction. Mae Nak is family. She is a wife who loved her husband so much she refused to accept she was dead. And Thai people don't fear her. They honor her. They understand her. But if you go to her shrine and you stand in front of her statue, the locals will tell you one rule. Do not say her name out loud at night. Do not tell strangers she's not real, because she's listening. Now let's go to Indonesia, to a real place, a real city, There is a city on the island of Borneo, on the equator, called Pontianak. 600,000 people live there. It has an airport, a university, traffic jams, shopping malls, McDonald's. It is named after a ghost so feared that when the Sultan founded this city in 1771, he had to fire cannons into the jungle to scare her away before he could even start building. And they still fire those cannons today, every year, just in case. Who is she? In Indonesia, they call her Kuntilanak. In Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei, they call her Pontianak. The name itself is from the Malay phrase, Perempuan mati beranak, which means the woman who died in childbirth, like Mae Nak, but so much more terrifying. Here is what she looks like. She is a young woman, long, straight black hair down to her waist. She wears a flowing white dress, sometimes stained with blood. She is beautiful, striking, the kind of woman you notice from across the street, until she turns around. Her eyes are red, her skin is corpse pale, her mouth is full of fangs, and in some versions, there is a hole in the back of her neck, just below her hair. That's how you can tell. She smells like frangipani flowers, sickeningly sweet, because that's what Southeast Asia traditionally puts on corpses before burial. And she lives in banana trees. Every village in Indonesia, every kampong in Malaysia, every patch of jungle in Singapore and Brunei, if there is a banana tree there, grown too tall, people will tell you, don't sit under that tree after dark. That's hers. Here is what she does. She hunts by smell. She flies through the night sky searching. What does she smell for? Clean laundry. That's why across Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, millions of people still refuse to leave clothes hanging outside overnight. Because if the Pontianak catches your scent through your laundry, she will come for you. When she finds a victim, usually a man, she appears as a beautiful woman. She smiles at him, lures him closer, and then her smile stretches too wide. Her fingernails grow into knives, and she drives her hand into his stomach to rip out his organs, to eat them. If your eyes are open when she reaches you, she will suck them out of your skull. This is not a campfire story. This is an active belief. In 2025, people still check their clothes before taking them inside at night. Still avoid banana trees. Still whisper her name when they smell frangipani on the wind. Now, here is the city. In 1771, a man named Sultan Syarif Abdurrahman Alkadrie wanted to build a trading post on the island of Borneo, where 3 rivers met. Perfect location. But when his men arrived, they kept dying. Accidents, disappearances, screams in the jungle at night. Something, or someone, did not want them there. So the Sultan did something unusual. He ordered his cannons to be aimed directly into the jungle. He ordered them to be fired, over and over and over again, through the night, into the darkness, until the screaming stopped. And from that day, he named his new city after the ghost he had chased away, Pontianak, so that every person in the city would remember who was here first. For generations, every year, on the founding day of Pontianak, they have fired the ceremonial cannons again. Just a reminder, a warning. We drove you out once, don't think we can't do it again. But the locals will also tell you, she never really left. Every horror movie made in Indonesia over the last 20 years, about 1/3 of them, is about her. She is their Freddy Krueger, their Chucky, their It, except she's named after a real place. You can fly to Pontianak, Indonesia right now. You can walk around the city. You can take selfies. You can order grab food. But after the sun goes down, locals will tell you the exact same thing they've been telling each other for 250 years. Don't walk past banana trees alone. Don't bring your laundry in late. And if you smell flowers at midnight, run. And now the last one. This one I want you to listen closely, because this one is the most recent, and it is the most well documented. There is a road in Manila called Balete Drive, about a mile long, cuts through a suburb in Quezon City called New Manila. Back in the 1940s, it was one of the richest neighborhoods in the whole country. Beautiful colonial houses, wealthy families, and lining both sides of the road, huge ancient balete trees, with thick, twisting roots that look like tentacles coming out of the ground. Balete trees are sacred in Filipino culture because Filipinos believe spirits live inside them. That is not folklore, that is active faith today. In 1949, a 17-year-old girl named Leni Garchitorena was driving a military jeep down this road, with her friends, teenagers, having fun, a little reckless. They hit a pile of gravel near the corner of España Extension and Balete Drive. The Jeep flipped. Leni was thrown 6 meters through the air. She hit the ground. She was alive, but barely. They rushed her to the hospital. She died the next day. Normal, tragic story. But then, it got strange. About 3 years later, in 1952, taxi drivers started reporting something. All of them, independently. Same story, same place. They would be driving down Balete Drive late at night, maybe 2, 3 in the morning, and a woman would be standing on the side of the road. A young woman, white dress, long black hair, beautiful. They would stop. She would get in the back seat. She would say, "Take me home." She would give them an address, a house somewhere down the road. They would drive her there, quiet ride, nothing wrong. They would pull up to the house, and when they turned around to tell her they had arrived, she would be gone. Empty back seat. Some drivers would panic, knock on the door of the house, and the people living there would tell them, "That girl you're looking for? She died years ago. You're not the first taxi to bring her here." Other drivers had it worse. They would drive her, look in the rearview mirror, and see her face. Not beautiful anymore, covered in blood, bruised, dead. And the drivers would abandon their cabs, run down the street screaming. This happened so many times that the Quezon City police had to respond. A police captain named Babao, one of their own, refused to patrol Balete Drive anymore. After what he saw out there, he was suspended from duty for refusing. He took the suspension. He said, "You send someone else." Newspaper articles, magazine features, this was real news. In 1952, every single person in Manila knew the story. She was called the White Lady. And 60 years later, people are still seeing her. Modern drivers, rideshare drivers, Uber, Grab. People have written Reddit posts, made YouTube videos, filed complaints with Manila police. I picked up a passenger on Balete Drive. She disappeared. The weirdest part? Nobody ever agrees on what actually happened to the original woman. Some say the girl who crashed the Jeep, Leni. Some say a woman assaulted and murdered by Japanese soldiers during World War II. Some say a university student killed by a taxi driver and dumped under a balete tree. The truth is, it might be all of them. Balete trees are believed to hold multiple spirits. Violent deaths leave echoes. And here is what Manila drivers do today, a ritual. Every time they need to drive down Balete Drive at night, before they enter the road, they honk their horn 3 times at the intersection. It's asking the spirits, "Please let me through. Don't get in my car. I mean no disrespect." If you do not honk, if you forget, the locals say something will ride with you. You might not see it, you might not feel it, but when you get home and you look in your rearview mirror at the empty back seat, you might catch a glimpse, just for a second. A woman in white, already gone. You cannot prove it's real, you cannot prove it's not. But for 77 years, drivers in the most populated city in Southeast Asia have been begging strangers for safe passage through a road lined with sacred trees. And most of them have never even seen her. They just know she's there. 3 countries, 3 women, 3 ghosts. One died waiting for her husband. One gave her name to a whole city. One still hails taxis in Manila at 2 in the morning. Southeast Asia is full of stories like these. Not because people are gullible, not because people are superstitious, but because in this part of the world, the line between the living and the dead has always been thinner than anywhere else. You light a candle for your grandmother, you offer fruit to a tree, you honk 3 times on a haunted road. Not because you're afraid of the ghost, because you respect her. Next week, if you thought these 3 were scary, wait until you meet the monsters, the creatures, the things that are not human. You do not want to miss it. That's a wrap for today. If you like this one, drop a like, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell, because we drop new episodes every week. Take care, and don't look in your rearview mirror tonight. I'll see you in the next one.